Episode 30, Lucas Grandsire podcast is back. I'm very excited about the guest today. We took a hiatus, so I was like, when we come back, we got to come back big. We got to come back BBC. It is, of course, Beige Brian Campbell. What's going on, sir? How are you?
Fired up, man. Thanks for having me back. I see you're fresh from the barbershop and fly from the beauty salon, ready for action right here. It's great to talk to you.
Of course, when I saw the podcast book for Thursday, I was like, all right, Barbershop Wednesday, come out with the fresh fade, and then no more shaving my head at home anymore. So now I don't have to wear a hat.
That became a COVID thing, and at first I was like, you know what? I could have been doing this all my life. It's not that hard, but problem is, man, you make one mistake and it's over, and that's and you got a shaved head, so that's the challenge and the danger of that.
And that was the thing. I saw you and Luke Thomas. You guys talking about doing it yourselves. Like, wow, like this. I mean, as long as we don't ask too many questions, it's very passable. And there's a lot of people like myself where a couple episodes bald, a couple comments about how I look like a skinhead, the hat comes out. So everybody had a different strategy.
Well, I thought I was on a good run until my wife was like, "No, that's enough of this. Enough of this. You look like like a teenager. Can we go back to the professionals?" So you got a happy wife, happy life. It's not easy. You know what I mean? It's not easy.
I assume going back to the professional, you start giving them tips, right? Like when you get to the hairline, my man, you want to start using and it's like, whoa, are you telling me what to do right now?
Yeah. I could fade the sides decently, but there's a lot. It's smoke and mirrors, a lot of mirrors, and it takes a long ass time. But shout out to anyone out there who's doing the self fade and doing it well. I can appreciate that skill for sure.
I was watching the YouTube videos when it first started, and these guys are so confident. They're like, all right, you just want to go ahead and create a line, shave off the line. I'm like, awesome. And then I realized, like, I can't see half of what I'm doing. I have no idea where the line is. And then you turn around the line, it's a slope. That doesn't look good.
Trying to shave through the viewpoint of mirrors, it's always the opposite movement that you think, and it's hard to center it. It's hard to use your offhand. It's a skill that's never going to go out of style. I don't know if it's a financially profitable one, but if you can cut a man's hair, you'll have a use for a while.
So I do have to say, as a teaser for the podcast, to put out a tweet, I'm like, the show is coming back, blah, blah, and we're going to have, it's like, we're going to have a BBC. Thought it was very timely. Caitlin Chukagian was doing something very similar. So, I'm excited. I'm like, I put this out there. My tweets really don't get that much engagement. So I'm like, I put it, whatever. I come back and nothing like a little BBC to get the timeline talking and the notifications up. All of a sudden, all these gifts, hold on, he said what? You see all these blue check marks responding, and you're like, okay, do people understand I'm not referring to what you think I'm referring to?
It's a controversial way to address yourself or a guest you're going to have on the show, but it's wild. Sometimes I regret, actually, oftentimes I regret the jokes that become standards where I come from in Morning Kombat land. But I'm glad you were able to get some clicks out of it. I once called Rashad Evans the original BBC. People didn't like that either. I understand why, though. Believe me.
Yeah, you play that line, and then sometimes you get a little fam. The BBC one, I mean, that joke you made about Caitlin Chukagian, I had to pause the video. Like you were like, it's a cheap. I was like, this is amazing. Like if I could make a poster, and just, I mean, that one to me, that was like, this is even Luke. You even got Luke laughing. I know his thing is, let him do his shenanigans. Easy. You got him. It has to be said.
Not easy to pop the curmudgeon himself, the great Luke Thomas, but I appreciate the rare times I can do that. And I got to give Caitlin credit. That's a total one of those moments where you're like, only in MMA this could happen, and she fielded it well. She rotated it and rebounded off of that mini controversy very well. So that's good to see.
I mean, how would you have handled that? Like as a media perspective, because I know people wanted to ask and everyone's scared to use any sort of term. So everybody was like navigating, there were some likes on a social media, which may or may not. And I was like, maybe we can just say like, hey, there's a bunch of black porn on your Twitter. What's going on? But how would you have handled that one, considering like you work for big outlets and stuff?
Yeah. Hey, Caitlin, there's a giant unit on your under your leg. I don't know. I don't know the best way. I mean, more often than not, the safer I try to get in saying ridiculous things, the more ridiculous it comes out. So I don't know if there's a proper game plan in this setting, but it was funny nonetheless.
I think it got worse the longer the questions got, because it was 10 minutes of, we're going to circle around this by circling around that. And after a while, I was like, wait, what are we asking again? Like, she's not coming off of a fight. Like, I felt like some people, like, their heart was in the right place, and it blew way out of proportion, trying to be, I guess, polite about it.
Yeah, I mean, in her situation, it seemed really obvious that she, like, was hacked. So it's, I think, like, everyone right away was like, okay, she was hacked. And then when she said as much, you're like, it makes sense. I get it. It is what it is. She admitted that she doesn't use social media wrong. My problem, or not problem, but like the fear I think all of us have is like if that accidentally happens to us in a way that doesn't look like it was hacked, or maybe it wasn't hacked, because whether you look for that kind of stuff online or not, or you accidentally come across it, you can hit the like button by accident. Not only, it's sort of like when you're Facebook stalking, like an ex or somebody you went to high school with, and you're flipping through, you're not paying attention, and your thumb slides, and then suddenly you're liking their photos, and you're like, can I unlike this before the email gets sent to them, alerting them? Can I look at someone's LinkedIn page without them realize I'm stalking them? So it's a precarious spot. I guess the best defense would be I got hacked in any situation, but at least Caitlin, her situation looked very believable. If good old Lucas Grandsire suddenly starts liking browsers or something, I'm not sure the rest of the world's going to believe you as easily. All right.
To be fair, Brian, you have a show where, penis jokes are a big part of it. So I feel like you would be in the same situation where people be like, yeah, right, BBC. Like, you really think you're going to pull one on us? Good. Yeah, good
Yeah,
one.
I know. There's the I got hacked thing. It doesn't, like, what, unfortunately here, like white guys making bad race jokes. The I got hacked thing, it doesn't work, bro. You didn't get hacked. You made an awful joke that was unnecessary. You're going to pay the price. I think that goes for guys like us who people assume we're looking at that stuff anyway. But enough of that bull crap here. Yeah, penis jokes notwithstanding there.
I have to ask, when you do a show like Morning Kombat, like your thing is, joke, joke, joke. And Luke's thing is, I'm going to let you do your joke, move it out of the way and keep going. How tough is that mentally? Because as a comedian, like you need the audience. You need someone to, show you a little something. And Luke gives you nothing. Like there are times where I'm like, man, if I was Brian, I don't know if I'd have the mental strength to keep going the way he is.
Yeah, it can be hard. I mean, I don't like fancy myself a comedian. Like, here's the thing: like, we all have our own gifts, whether it be broadcasting or if we dabble in comedy. Like, I'm not somebody I ever think who is is funny enough to be a comedian where I could present a prepared 10 minutes
Right.
of material. I'm a counter puncher, right? I guess I have wit. It's like the same shtick in my friend circle is the same shtick you see on Morning Kombat. Maybe that's why it works, because it's fairly authentic, even though obviously you're playing up certain jokes just for the sake of it. Luke is a lot funnier than people actually realize, and there is, because he can be such a hard ass, and there's certain parts of his comedic game where he's not self-aware, so it becomes funny because he doesn't realize that it's funny. But I think his ability to no sell is very underrated, and that is a big part of if there's ever a time where someone's like, man, BC's kind of funny. Well, it's because Luke no sold it and played it perfectly. But to the spirit of your question, yes, there is a rare time I consider myself a natural counterpuncher where if you say something, I might be able to think of something funny in the moment to come back with. But there's once in a while where I get a little too cute and think I got something funny that I'm going to deliver. And then Luke doesn't give it the time of day and is like moving on, and that can be a deflated balloon. Like, come on, bro, we could have had something here if you just played off me a little bit. But, he's, to his credit and the success he's built in this career, you know what I mean? He tries to keep that train on the tracks as much as he can on the show, which is such a weird dichotomy. And maybe it's why our chemistry works, because off camera, when the cameras aren't running, it's our roles flip. He is a ridiculous, inappropriate, savage, and just gross person who, when the cameras are off, I'm like, bro, I'm not talking about this. I'm not thinking about this. Like, stop that. So it's funny. Yes, we do have the MK doc cams rolling a lot. Yes, some of that is just shticky acting and fooling around, but people might be surprised at our actual dynamic when the cameras are off.
So I have to know, when they invited you out to do the MMA beat, and then people start to realize, like, everybody's serious, they're serious, they're serious. And then there's Brian Campbell, jabbing at Luke Thomas constantly, and people start to realize, do we have something here? Is there a little spark, a little something? And, I mean, how did that start? Like, how did you realize your thing on that thing was like, everybody else is going to take the question seriously, and you're going to sort of jab at Luke Thomas, try to get him a little riled up?
I can answer that quickly, but there's like a longer story that sort of fuels that. It's like, by that point, so that's 2018. The first time I was on the MMA beat, episode 200, I think it was like July 2018. I'd moved over the year before from ESPN to CBS, and like, cool. I'm a full-time combat sports writer and talent, so to speak. I've had cups of coffee on TV, on SportsCenter, whatever. Like, I've done some things, but I wasn't the success that I had now. And I've talked about this at length on various shows when they ask about my career arc and sort of say like, there were a lot of years where I was like trying to be a poor man's version of people I admired in the business. And like, like if I'm talking about boxing with a suit on at a desk, I'm like, I want to be like almost like a Jim Lampley. I want to be professional. I want to be serious. And I feel like, this is probably the best lesson I learned in the business, that the less you are yourself, like the advice, what's the advice everyone gives you in any situation in your life? It's like, just be yourself and it'll be fine. And a lot of us are like, dude, I'm not that interesting. If I be myself, I'm just going to be some average Joe. And I think what happens is we tend to fall into a model and a rut of who we think we're supposed to be. So for years on air, I was just who I thought I was supposed to be. And who I thought I was supposed to be was a poor man's version of people that had already done it. And what that became was a inauthentic, somewhat vanilla version of myself. Maybe, I had a following to a degree. Some people liked it. That's cool. I was good enough to get certain jobs or fill in opportunities. But it's funny, the timing of me going on the beat, which sparked what we're doing now in Morning Kombat, because 2018 was the year that and he just celebrated his 3-year anniversary, the year that Mauro Ranallo had that documentary on Showtime. It was the Bipolar Rock and Roll. I got the autograph poster over there. It means a lot to me because I had covered I'd spent the day with Mauro, the day of the launch of the film. There was like a premiere in New York City. There were celebrities there, fighters, wrestlers. It was everything. I'd spent the day with him doing the media rounds. And I was like hearing him do interview after interview. And then in between, I'm interviewing him. And he's talking about the need to, of course, what the spirit of the film is, to take your mental health seriously and to not be afraid to not be okay and tell people and all that stuff. And it was around a time where I was just sort of hitting walls. Like, again, I'm good enough to have a good job in this business, but I'm really not that good, right? I'm just sort of like another dude. And I that was a turning point day and period in my life right before my 40th birthday, where I think hanging out with Mauro and covering the launch of that film allowed me to realize that maybe, I'm not taking my mental health serious enough, or realizing that, sometimes, okay, I'm anxious or I'm depressed. Is that a thing? Is that just life? No, maybe it's a thing. Maybe there's family history. Maybe I've been through that in my life and had dark periods that I didn't really recognize what it was. So long story short, that summer, I kind of took my mental health seriously for the first time. And I reached out and got a therapist and went on medication for the first time. And what happened next? And it took, and believe this isn't like overnight process. It takes a while for the medication to get right in most cases and to fit your body and your mind. And it's a process. But the fruit that came months later in the fall of 2018 was like the turning point in my career. The phone didn't stop ringing. And even to this day, as long as it lasts, thank you, God, like I'm getting great opportunities. But you know what that turnover happened? It was me like not caring anymore. And when I say not caring, I don't mean like, oh, I went on mental health meds to learn that I can tell penis jokes on here. No, that's not what your guy BC is saying right here. What I mean is, I used to stress out so badly every time I was ahead of I was supposed to be on camera. I remember the first time I was a fill-in reporter on Friday Night Fights on ESPN doing like the sideline thing. And all day I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I remember sitting in like the tub in the hotel room, just stressed out, trying to memorize some spiel I was going to give when I was on the air, and just doing all the things you shouldn't do, and stressed out. And I was like everyone else who, after I'd be on camera, I would just watch it 50 times and just be disgusted with myself. Something happened right around that time that Chuck Mindenhall said, hey, BC, Luke Thomas is hosting the MMA Beat now. Ariel went to ESPN and we kind of need people. Would you mind driving down? And I just stopped caring. I stopped caring how people received me. I stopped caring that I was this fake Jim Lampley or fake John Anik or fake whoever you look up to in the business. And I was like, you know what? Maybe just being me, like, could be good enough. Or maybe I just don't care if it is, and I'm just going to go out there and be me. So it was, the times in your life when things change, a lot of times it's just the perfect storm. It was the perfect storm that I'm going through that battle mentally and internally, and I'm on medication, and I'm for the first time telling people, you know what, I'm not all right, but I'm working on it. And then I go to this show. And I go down to New York, and by the way, I loved my time. That short time I worked with MMA fighting at the MMA Beat. They've got a professional studio in there and a great team and all that. And it's Luke, it's Chuck, it's me, it's Danny Segura. And I remember sitting there, and they're getting the cameras ready, and they're micing us up. And I was just like, you know what? like, this is gravy to me. This is bonus. It's a few dollars in my pocket. It's the potential for, a bigger reach in the MMA world, which, even though I'd been covering MMA for years, I had no standing in MMA. I was known as a boxing guy or a pro wrestling guy, right? So I'm like, this is fun. This is gravy. There was just something about sitting there with those personalities. I'd known Chuck forever. I used to be his editor when he worked at ESPN, and I'd known Luke, acquaintance wise. And I was just like, what? Screw it, dude. Let's have some fun. I'm not afraid to be the asshole. I'm not afraid to be wrong. I'm not afraid to talk over somebody and piss them off. It was one of the first times in my life where I was just like, I'm going to be the purest distillation of myself, and I'm not going to care if it's good enough. And I'm not like trying to revisionist history and make it romantic. I remember thinking in my head, I don't care if Luke hates this. I don't care if the MMA fans think I'm a filthy casual, which they still do, and that's fine. I don't care about any of that. You know what I want to do? I want to have fun. I want to entertain. I want to pop the guy next to me. I want to challenge Luke, because no one ever challenges Luke, right? Yeah. And as I've told the story a few times on the subway ride home, Chuck, I looked at Chuck. I was like, well, dude, thanks for asking me. It's probably never going to happen again, because, Luke seemed pretty pissed off. Whatever the reason was, it worked. And Luke liked the challenge and liked the energy. And that was the birth of what has become, a turning point in my career. And I'm so thankful for Morning Kombat and Showtime and CBS and all the stuff we're doing. But if there's a lesson learned in there, dude, it was just like, fuck it, man. Like, today's the day I'm not going to care anymore. But I had to be, it's funny. I'm not going to compare that to fighting. Yet, I interviewed Rashad Evans. He's a part of our Morning Kombat extended thing. And I was asking him about that Chuck Liddell fight for that story time thing we do. And he said something that I'm probably never going to forget. He was like, the night before fighting Chuck, I had to call Randy Couture to my hotel room, who was his mentor at the time. And he was like, Randy, look, I'm afraid. Like, I'm afraid that I'm going to take an L tomorrow, that I'm going to get knocked out. And Randy was like, you need to come to terms with the worst case scenario that could happen. And Rashad's like, that's what allowed me to wake up on that Saturday morning ahead of that fight in Atlanta and be like, I got this. I'm going to do this. He had to be like, you know what? I might lose. I'm going to get knocked the hell out like everyone else who fights Chuck. And in a weird way, that stupid episode 200 of MMA Beat, in which I made crappy jokes and people were like, who the hell is this guy? I had to come to terms with the fact that it, this might suck. And I think there was some odd release in that. And thank you to everybody who was like, hey, BC and Luke have something here. And it turned into something great. But that wasn't supposed to be that. That was just me having enough of the nerves and being a perfectionist and all that BS, all the torture that we do to ourselves as artists, right? It's a joke. BC's the artist. But seriously, whether you're a writer, whether you're a painter, whether you're a on-air guy, we're all trying to put something out there. And we can't get out of our own freaking way. That was the first day I was like, you know what? Look in the mirror, man, in the mirror. You're not holding me back today. All right. So there's the long story short. That's that spark. I thought Luke hated me. Turned out that's exactly what he needed in terms of a new lane in his career. And, for a tag team partner, I could have done a lot worse. It's working out great.
It's interesting you say that because, the big thing I hear all the time is maybe drink an energy drink before you do your interviews and stuff like that. It's always people are like, tone it up. And for a long time, I always figured being laid back and stuff is professionalism. If you're trying too hard to be funny and stuff, it wasn't professional. And then you realize that's just me. I just made some shit up and figured that's what professionalism was. And all it is going to mean that I'm not standing out. But yes. People want that. But for example, for social media, I was looking at some old arguments I had with people, and I was so nice about it. I see your point, but here's my. I'm like, in real life, I would have told you to shut the fuck up. So maybe this character that I'm playing, maybe I don't need to go extreme and tell guys shut the fuck up on social media, but it's maybe we need to see that a little bit more rather than, you know what? Thank you for your point. It's stupid, but I can understand where you're coming from.
Well, you know what I've learned through the last couple of years of my career, that people just want authenticity, right? Yeah. They want somebody they can relate to. So that helps, certainly. You know what I mean? I think I always look one of the key, remember when Bill Simmons became big, right? 2000, 2001, it was just something so fresh. And it was the first time a quote unquote journalist was just kind of being themselves. And everybody's like, dude, that guy's a guy in my friend circle. I know exactly who that is. People just, and it's not here's BC's story, so he's ridiculous. So, I want to be like him. I just want to be ridiculous. You have to just be yourself. And that is the hardest freaking thing to do. In fact, I was reading this New York Times profile of Bruce Springsteen a couple years ago, and he was like, the biggest lesson I learned from Elvis Presley was that he had the guts to be his actual self. And it's like, man, there's there's gold inside of you. I'm gonna go Wizard of Oz and try to get weird with you or Tony Robbins your ass, but like it's to your point, what you're saying. For me, my real self just turned out to be somebody who's ridiculous, that cracks corny dad jokes or 90s rap lyrics or whatever. And I have enough of a passion mixed with a decent knowledge of the game that it works. But for you or for anyone else, it could be anything. But as long as it's real and it's you, that's what the people want. Like I'm lucky that I have a show where I can be myself, right? With Showtime and CBS, and they've built a soft foundation. Now, it doesn't mean I can't tomorrow say something stupid or somebody pull me out of context and I can get, anything bad can happen. It's a risk, right? But to your point of like, yeah, maybe I'm not the nice guy. Maybe I don't need to play the nice guy. Just figure out who the hell you are in any lane that you're in. And I think that's the secret to the game. It's a secret to happiness, first of all, but it's the secret to unlocking, where you're supposed to be in life.
So something you brought up, like the clips and being pulled out of context, that's something we're seeing more and more, especially in MMA. At first, it was funny, right? Because it was like fighters saying something weird or accidentally saying something too sexual. And now I feel like it's turned to the point where if you stutter over your own words, boom, you're all over social media, and it's gotten really bad. And I know it's gotten you in trouble. It's gotten Luke in trouble a few times. It's gotten everybody in trouble. Has it reached a point where it's not quite fun anymore? Like I know we all love making fun of Tito Ortiz, who's extreme about everything, but has it gotten to a point where it's a little bit dangerous for people that make a lot of content on video?
Oh, it's real dangerous, man. It's like I always say, it's like, for example, Showtime and CBS Sports puts a microphone in front of us for 6 hours a week at minimum. It's like, within that 6 hours, or anyone that hosts a radio show or anybody that whatever, like I'm going to say something freaking stupid. I'm going to say something wrong, incorrect, factually. And I'm probably, whether it's me purposely trying to push the envelope or me accidentally pushing the envelope, like, you're going to get into something where if pulled out of context, and a great example is when you were going to have me on your show and I was just like, oh, I'm kind of under fire over this whole Risen thing. We want to wait a little bit. It's just like, I did a stupid bit to troll Luke, my tag team partner. And, it came off very insensitive. And in hindsight, it was, but it was also pulled out of context and shot to the world. Yes, there's like this weird cancel culture. And yes, to your point, if you stutter over your own words, suddenly somebody's got a Twitter account that makes it a meme. Now, some of that is just like, look, when we get to a certain level, like you got to just understand that, you could be a target to people that are, I don't know, jealous or that just want to tear you down. And like, that's hard to understand, even though you can prepare yourself to say, I'm not going to check my mentions, right? And like everybody wants to sort of check their mentions though and see where they're at. And dude, I even check the comments a lot on Morning Kombat. I want to see what people like, they don't like. It sort of gives you some percentage of an understanding of what people do. But yeah, you certainly can't live and die by that. And I don't think you can walk around scared and censor yourself. But yeah, obviously you got to be smart. I understand that we have fun, we say stupid things. At any point, any of it could be pulled out of context or sometimes in context. And if just put out on the right Twitter account or on the right blog, and it could lead down a bad road. But I would do a shitty show though if I wasn't trying to be the best I could be, or the most fun I could be, or the most passionate I could be, or at times when I think I got a good joke, the most funny I could be. So I just decide not to worry about it. But it is worrisome in this cancel culture. And I think the cancel culture is good in the sense that, like, look at where we're at culturally, with Me Too and BLM and all this great stuff that I think for the first time, like, people are standing forward and saying, enough of the BS. You know what I mean? That's great. But the flip side of that is the oversensitive, extra PC nature where you can't have fun anymore. And sometimes it just takes a certain Twitter account that doesn't like you to put your shit on blast and enough people to retweet it. It's nerve-wracking. It could end badly, but I think you have to just figure out how to be, again, yourself and just walk boldly in the direction of your dreams and hope you're praying to the right God or something that it all works out. But it's a little unnerving at times.
Are you surprised by sometimes the sensitivity in MMA or even combat sports? Like sometimes, like I feel like it's such a tough sport, and for a long time, people were like, "Oh, the fighters are sensitive and stuff like that." It's like you kind of get it, but feel like people are overselling it a little bit. The fans are sensitive. Some of the media is sensitive. Like, are you surprised by some of the sensitivity? Like, I
Yeah,
feel like,
everybody's too
yeah,
sensitive. And to be honest, sometimes I'm too sensitive. Sometimes I'll get into an interaction with somebody on Twitter and 3 or 4 replies, and I'm like, wait, why am I arguing over this? You know what I mean? Like who cares? We're all sensitive about being called out. Yet, because I'm in a job in which calling certain things out, whether it be poor performances or whatever, like it's part of the gig, right? Like, I mean, I don't want somebody to take a negative thing I would say about a fighter after a fight and send it to them on it. But it happens, or it could happen. And you have to realize that I could run into this fighter in the future and he could be unhappy. But, also let's all be honest about what this is. Inside the cage or the ring, is it a life or death battle? Yes, it's a very severe sport with huge a huge price to pay. There's deaths, there's a lot of bad stuff. But fighting is also within the realm of entertainment. It's sports, it's entertainment. And in entertainment, like shows like what I do, or even like a First Take, which everybody's like, oh, Stephen A. or he's not even, Skip Bayless used to be on there. It's like, oh, they're just regurgitating this or that. It's all part of the news cycle. It's all part of the promotion. It is what it is at the end of the day. You can't take it too seriously. You can't take criticism too seriously. I do think overall, there's a huge separation between the idea of, if you've in both sports, both fight sports, if you've never fought, then you shouldn't talk about X's and O's and technical or toughness or courage or overcoming injury. And it's like, okay, I get that to a degree. That, look at me. I've playfully called myself a keyboard warrior. I've done some boxing sparring. I don't have a fist fight record. I'm not a professional athlete. You know what I mean? But it's also my job to have an opinion if somebody quits on their stool and try to, respectfully generate an idea of what has happened there. I do think it's too sensitive at times that people are just like, oh, you can't speak on this. You didn't do it. It's like, well, there's been some great NBA coaches who never had a game past high school, right? There's been a lot of different scenarios. You know what I mean? I don't think Max Kellerman or Al Bernstein have professional boxing fights on the record. They're pretty damn good at breaking down the sport. So again, you take it for what it is and just keep moving. But yeah, Luke and I had this debate on an episode of a bonus episode we filmed today about like covering MMA. It's a little bit more sensitive than even boxing. There's just this like built-in, like, don't talk bad about it. Don't question anyone. Well, look, it's entertainment. So when you have entertainment, you have shoulder content that is meant to promote it, in which you question stuff. Okay. I'm a talking head. That's what we do to fill time on podcasts. It is, come on. It is what it is here, people. Let's roll on off of this.
That is a weird thing, right? That if you've never competed, if you never this, that, you can't talk about it. But you don't see that in any other sport. Like, you don't tell these guys that cover football, like, if I don't see you out on that field in that padding, you don't have a right to talk about, but why is it like that for MMA? I know the media is always talking about that, but it's a weird one that this is the sport where if you don't compete, you're not allowed to have an opinion. When we all have eyeballs, we can all see what's going on out there, and you're in it long enough, you can have an understanding without necessarily getting put to sleep out there yourself. So I don't understand why this sport's like that, and other sports aren't like that.
I mean, look at somebody like Luke Thomas, whose technical analysis game I really respect, and I think the fans have spoken. They respect him as one of the best. Now, he, unlike a lot of us, has had a decade of experience in taking classes in jiu-jitsu and actually understanding some of the craft. But let's say he didn't, and he was just really good at picking up trends or pausing video and finding things out. Like, so we shouldn't be bold in our opinion because we haven't fought. Like, it's up to the audience to decide who's the most credible or the most entertaining or both in terms of where they get their news and reaction from, right? It's not up to a fighter who's mad that somebody who does a podcast out of their basement talked bad about them. It's sort of like, I don't mean to say that like people aren't rude or people aren't out of line. And when I say, man, that's 4 bad performances for Tyron Woodley, he should never fight again. No, technically it's not my space to say that, but I'm not a commission member or a promoter or anything. I host a podcast, right? So if you don't like, as Mike Tyson famously said, if you don't like it, turn off your station, right? At the end of the day. So, you take whose opinion you believe at the end, but yes, there's a very high sensitivity. It does come from the fighters of, if you didn't do it, don't talk to me about it. And then it's like, well, hey, guess what, fighters, a lot of you guys are becoming broadcasters. Some of you are really good. Some of you aren't. I don't be like, hey, did you go to college for journalism? I mean, I don't be like, hey, can you write me a a 800-word deadline recap. No, I don't. Like, who cares, bro? Like, go after it. Be yourself. Do it.
Do you feel like, fighters, well, obviously, especially in MMA, like, they don't really understand the role of the media? Like, I feel like this is a sport where everybody's so accessible with each other. All it would take is one guy to kind of understand how it works, and they could shoot to stardom by talking to the right people. Or, sometimes I look at it and, like, there's so many opportunities where if you stop hating the media for 5 seconds, you can use that to your advantage. Like, so many
Yes.
guys are open to talking, especially with big platforms.
Well, but guys get burned, and I get that why, because there's times even when I'm just doing my job, and I'm not saying it's not in good faith, but you interview somebody, you transcribe the quotes right away. You know which quotes are juicy, man. You know which quotes are headlines. You know which quotes are quick clickbait, and that's the game. Yes, we talk bad about people that are their sole focus is clickbait. Their sole focus is taking something you said out of context and putting it. But that's the history of journalism in a lot of ways, right? It's why in most pro sports, athletes and media like aren't friends and close, right? And sometimes in fighting, those lines get blurred, and obviously there's always going to be journalists who are fighter friendly and all that, but like, I don't know. It's what I talked about before on the whole idea that, like, when you get to a certain level where you are a public facing figure, whether you're a fighter or just a podcast host or whatever, the more people that have access to your stuff, and especially in this day and age with comment sections and social media and instant reactions, you're going to get a lot of shit in return. You just have to realize, as the great John Wooden said, in terms of, praise and criticism, both it's a flaw to lean into either side, right? It's like you can use them for constructive resources to build up your confidence or teach yourself what you're doing wrong, but you can't live and die in either lane. And I get why fighters who feel like they're risking their lives, and they are, let's not look over that, and a lot of times they're not getting paid well, and a lot of times it's a heartbreaking sport, and they're getting screwed over by the promoter, and then they have to deal with us saying something in an interview that pisses them off. I get why they're pissed off, but I think you do have to get to a level where you're just like, F everybody else. That's just noise. I know what matters to me, my family, my passion, my profession, and that's it. And, I wish we could be a little less sensitive. I wish we could kind of talk about each other more without fearing, an ass kicking at the end of the day or some type of response. It's like, can we all just realize what this is? You know what I mean? It's the social media is bullshit. We all play in that muddied water, but it's bullshit. Okay. So you know what you're getting if you're going to put a profile out there. Okay. That's what it is.
So I have to know the Morning Kombat, right? A lot of people, they see you and you kind of feel like, that's a guy I can have a beer with and stuff. Has that made it to the point where too many people think they're friends with you, or they're too friendly, or they come at you thinking like you're buddies, and it's like, well, hold on, man, like you still don't know me, even though you feel like you do. Have you had sort of an issue with that kind of?
Yeah, it's an interesting walk. My wife makes fun of me because look, when you've Luke and I say this a lot, when you've worked in this business long enough where you're working like nights and weekends, like, I've been working nights and weekends since I've been like 18, covering high school swimming for the local newspaper, right? Like, you're gonna lose your close friends. You're gonna, you're living a different life. What am I doing Saturday? Oh, covering fights every single Saturday for the rest of my life. Once you get in on that and realize it, plus when you become an adult, plus when you have a family, you don't really have a lot of time for friends. My wife makes fun of me because a lot of my friends are people in the business, right? They have the same love for the fight game that I do. I see them at fights more than I see the people in my own life, right? Social media has allowed us to sort of see people on Facebook that we would normally make time for, but oh no, I've liked all the pictures of your kids. I don't need to hang out with you anymore, right? Like, so I get that, like, sometimes that those are my friendships. I've made friendships with people that are followers of my work. You know what I mean? We've actually hung out, and I consider some of those friendships like genuine and real, and they mean a lot to me. But it's also a slippery game to welcome in too much of that. And to your point, people, because you put out a show that is very loose and real, and sort of the secret sauce of the show is that it feels so normal to somebody. That's why they want to watch, because it feels like that they're hanging out with their friends or whatever. There can be people reaching out to you. Oh, I love the show. And you're like, hey man, thanks. And then suddenly it's like, hey, let's hang out. And it's like, well, I don't know if we're there, bro, but so, I mean, like anything, you get too close to the fire, you're eventually going to get burned. Luke is always like, bro, because how Luke acts like he's the only one who ever had a following, whatever. Luke's like, bro, let me tell you, I got 100,000 YouTube subscribers. Once you get to a certain level, you'll realize you don't need any of these fans, right? Like, they're all just blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, Luke, come on. But I get the spirit of what he's saying. There's some weirdos out there. There's people that are ready to burn you. I understand that every time I respond back to a DM, let's say on Twitter, Instagram, somebody could then publicize that tomorrow. So you gotta be careful. My wife thinks sometimes I hang out with stalkers and that they're going to come to my organs and leave me in a tub in an abandoned building one day in like Detroit or something. And it may happen. Okay. But there's some really nice people in this game. I've been a fight fan for a long time in circles where people don't watch fights, know fights, care about fights, and all they know is Hagler and Hearns, right? So when I can get people that are cool and they can talk game and I can shoot them a text message and maybe that friendship started because they like my podcast, but it's cool. But I've had great success for the most part, in that area. But I am prepared that it could go south at any point.
Very south that they're harvesting your organs and stuff like that. I mean, now that you said it, not that I get any requests to hang out with strangers online, but now that's going to be something that when the time eventually comes, going to be like, I don't want to be like BC. I want to keep my organs. That's something that's a little bit terrifying to think of now.
It's an important part of your life. You got to keep that shit together for sure. Yeah.
But Luke Thomas does do a great job of like keeping that jab out and keeping people at a distance, right? I see it all. The people try to like bullshit him a little bit and be friendly online, and then it's just like, boom, we're gonna send you all the way back. Like I've had a few back and forths with him on accident too. It's like he's so good at it.
He does that in his personal life too. It
Yeah.
keeps a lot of people at an arm's length. I always tell him you're wounded, but it's I don't know how I became best friends with Luke Thomas. I don't know why. I get under his jab when other people just get on his nerves, but like anyone who's difficult to love, you stay the course. There's a lot to love with Luke Thomas, but yeah, he does have that sort of like whether he's dealing with other media members, fans, corporations, our bosses, he's always sort of waiting to see what's happening first before he commits. But
I have to say, we talk about online interactions. I always try to be professional and stuff, but there is one petty exchange I had with Luke Thomas that I saved. During the World Cup 2018 soccer, I don't know if you're a fan or not, but so the World Cup's going on, and I guess he's rooting for Colombia because his wife's Colombian, something like that, and so he's giving his analysis and stuff. And I'm French. I was in France at the time watching France. So, that's my team, that's my country. And he goes, "Oh yeah, France played like shit, blah blah blah." I saved that tweet, and I was like, we're so good. If we win this thing, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna say something to him. And I came back when we did win it, and I was like, "Oh, but I thought we played like shit." And I forgot I was dealing with a heavyweight. This wasn't going to be he was like, "First of all, that was not what I was talking about. That was not the point. This is pointless. This is stupid." It's like, damn, man.
And you're
like,
blocked.
Yeah, no, blocked. I didn't get blocked. Somehow I did not get blocked. That's a tightrope right there. I was like, oh man, because I like Luke Thomas, but any chance to be a little bit petty, right? You have to pick your moments.
Luke's never been wrong. We all know that. Come on, come on. He don't take L's. Come on, that's.
But I feel like that's his strength though in a debate, right? Is that you feel like even if you made a great point, the way he'd respond to you, it's like, listen, dumbass, I'm going to give you 2 seconds to respond, but next time his style is so good at, even if he's wrong, you question yourself.
Let me tell you what I respect the most about Luke, and it's that lane that you're saying right there. You know what the hardest thing to do in this business, and I've been lucky to get a lot of different cups of coffees in different roles, right? The hardest thing to do in this business is solo content, solo radio, let's say. It's why, does Colin Cowherd say a lot of, I'm just using that as an example because he's been successful and on top for a long time, but does he say a lot of bullshit that I'm not even sure he believes? Probably. But sitting in front of a microphone with no co-host or guest, and it's, I've done it at times in the podcast form, and I love it because it's such a challenge. There's a rush involved. You have to be able to have a conversation with yourself. You have to be able to be the angel and the devil over your own shoulder and have this free flowing conversation. And, he's really good at it. He did it for a long time with SiriusXM. So I always want to give him that credit. And sometimes I rib him that when we're doing a 2-man show, he can go into the camera and stay there for 5 minutes and talk to himself. But, that's not an easy skill. There's some of these things in this game that are easy. Some come more naturally to others, man. That's a hard skill. So I give him a lot of credit. That's why, look, some of it is his, distrust for the system in this business where he's always like, you know what, if tomorrow it folds, if I get fired, I've got my own infrastructure built with YouTube and his own supplies in his house. And that's really smart. But it's true. Tomorrow he could be like, BC, sorry, we had a good run. I'm going to go back and do my solo show. And he's going to be very successful. That's not an easy thing. And yes, he can convince you somehow that you were wrong. I find at the end of some the rare times I'll really get at him on a show and really be jabbing back and forth, usually ends with me going, all right, bro, I get it. It's not like me like waving the white flag. It's just like, you can't, even if I won that, I feel like I lost that debate.
I mean, the way he's done it, there'd be times where they're debating, and then I'm like, ooh, Brian made a great point. It's like, I agree with Brian. And the way Luke answers, it's like a child. Like, he's like, listen, I'm going to entertain this because we have to, because we're on TV. But the next time you say something so stupid to me again, and you're watching, you're like, wow, I guess BC was wrong, and I was wrong for thinking that. I'm an idiot. Luke is definitely right.
I would love to see the dynamics of the marriage arguments in his house one day. I want to see if he holds that same. I want to see if he holds that same debate record. When it really
And with a
matters.
Latina, like, they're known for, if someone's gonna go back and forth with you, like, that's, I mean, that's the one, that's the match we need to see. Just the press
As Luke
conference
Thomas
alone.
has said, if your significant other hasn't ripped down a door, do you have a real relationship?
Oh man, and I believe it. I definitely believe it. I mean, but you mentioned the thing about the solo thing. For a long time, I don't know why. I was like, it can't be that hard, right? You can sit there and look at a camera, talk to yourself, respond to comments. There's a few times where even on this podcast, I did some UFC watch along, got invited to, and I'll get a, hey man, I gotta take a quick piss. Can you hold down the fort by yourself? Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, do your thing, man. Number one, number two, whatever. And the second I go solo, I'm like, oh no, like there's no
What
one
do
to
I
talk
do?
to. Yeah,
Yeah,
you try to read a comment and you try to stretch it out. You're like, okay, I'm gonna stretch it out for 10 minutes. And really you just did 30 seconds and half of it was reading the comments. Like, okay, this is difficult.
dude, I'll tell you the moments that I hate, where I feel so ill-equipped. It's in this lane again. It's when I do CBS Sports HQ, our streaming, live sports network, that they have me on multiple times a week to preview fights and stuff. And I always tell them, like, dude, you can call me last minute, I'll jump on. Don't give me the questions or the topics, like whatever. You know what I mean? I'm a professional. You ask me something I don't even know about, I'll find a way to answer it without really answering it, but stay entertaining enough and get it back to you, and we can
Yeah.
keep going. Once in a while, though, they'll go, hey, we're really tight on time today. We had breaking news in the NFL. Can you send us 60 seconds previewing Saturday's fight? Or can you give us 90 seconds on reacting to this news? And I end up doing like 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 takes sometimes, especially when they're like, can you record it and send it in? Because it's just unnatural and weird to sort of do that. And it's not easy, man. It's not easy.
So I have to ask, and you alluded to this earlier, but it seems like there's a lot of people that don't want to accept you in MMA. Like you're going to be the boxing guy no matter what. You host multiple shows a week talking about MMA, but you're a boxing guy who, wishes these guys were boxing instead of MMA. What's the story behind that? I mean, what do you have to do? Do you have to grab each individual person that says that and shake them and Luke Thomas debate them until they accept you? Like, I feel like you've done enough, especially now where it's like, come on, like you're beyond just a boxing guy.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And sometimes I take that too personal. And the listeners let me know that I did, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I need to stop that. But yeah, I think it's because I'm, goofy by nature, and I'm not afraid to, let's say, be wrong, first of all, to be obnoxious, so that automatically people will look at you and go, okay, he's the clown, right? But he's not, what does he know? Or, oh, I used to watch that guy do pro wrestling or boxing, what does he know? But I'm also, when I say I'm not afraid to be wrong, like there's an art in filling time. There's an art in having good debate and doing podcasts, right? That keep people interested. And one of that art is when you hear people talk about how to do radio. It's like, think of a subject matter as a tree, but then there's branches, and each branch is a different element of the discussion that you can stretch out. And a lot of those branches are sort of devil's advocate questions, in which you're like, okay, I don't really believe this, but there's a spirit to the point I'm making that might be true. I'm never afraid to make that, to go in that direction of the conversation. Hey, this MMA fighter just won 10 in a row and he looks fantastic. But is it me, or does part of what we look at because of his competition level or the styles that he fought? I think sometimes people will hear that or see that and be like, man, who the F is this guy? And
Right.
maybe it's because I'm paired with such a diehard, respected, take no prisoners guy like Luke in the MMA side, or maybe I'm just an asshole and I look like one, and that's fine at the end of the day too. But it's weird, man. I have been in the MMA journalism game a long time. I did a lot of shit behind the scenes, and as far back as 2007 and 8. I mean, ESPN's MMA Live, I was one of the editors on that show back in the day. RIP. I mean, I was an ESPN MMA editors as early as 2012 and had bylines. 2016, I was ESPN's like national MMA columnist, going to all the Conor fights. Like I've done some shit, right? But because I'm known in the other avenues, it was really hard to knock on that door. I had an MMA podcast with King Mo. I had another one with Rashad Evans, and nobody listened to it. And nobody, it's a crowded space. No one looked at me as an MMA guy, and that's fine. And I get it. And teaming with Luke from the MMA beat through MK has been, really great for me to finally kick that door open and get a piece of that fan base, even though if you check my, my follower account, like it's not something I'm personally aimed at going after, right? I don't tweet 6 times a day for the purpose of trying to expand my follower count. It's just not really who I am. But so I it's like I get it, right? But yes, there's still times when I can get absolutely pissed off where someone's like, man, this idiot has no idea what he's saying. Here's 5 points he said that was wrong. And I'm like, they're not actually wrong, bro. Okay. Like you pulled me out of context here. And then this one, I was really saying this. But again, you put a microphone in front of me, I'm going to make errors over the totality of it. And I'm also going to say things that you misinterpreted, right? Or that I incorrectly sort of said. So there's a lot of factors that go together. Just because someone hasn't seen you and followed your work doesn't mean you haven't been. I hate to pull the sword because it sounds stupid, but dude, I had UFC parties at my house beginning like 1994 when I had the illegal cable pay-per-view box. Okay, like I'm borderline day one-ish on this. Okay, whether you respect me or not. So that's fine. All right. Do I know a wrist lock from a padlock? An arm bar from a nudie bar? Not on Luke Thomas's level. But I certainly respect the game, and I've been there. I've been front row. I've been in the John Morgan seat. Okay, I've seen some shit. All right, I'm also here to entertain and challenge you, dear listener, not necessarily inform you. At the end of the day,
That's the funny thing you mentioned about people. They don't necessarily see you, and then when you do show up, they like question you because they didn't know about you. I'm kind of the same way in which I'm still trying to get my name out there, and sometimes you feel like you're doing things under a rock. And I'll have people sometimes they'll say like we've been covering MMA what 3-4 months, and I'm like nah. And then when you say like how many years, it's like holy shit, man. It's like yeah, that's why I'm frustrated. Or it's like but that's why you saying that too. It's also like just because you didn't know that existed, which which is fair, most people don't. But it's like that doesn't mean I haven't been at this thing. Like usually
but
you come,
it is
yeah,
natural. And let me give you an equivalence of why this is natural. So we cover the fight game, but what happens twice, 3-4 times a year? There are fights that cross over right into the
right.
mainstream. So think of like Mayweather, Pacquiao, or McGregor versus whomever, where suddenly Sports Center has a desk outside the arena, and it's like Stephen A. Smith and name mainstream person. I mean, how many times have you turned into First Take, for example, and you see Max Kellerman, the boxing guy, giving you opinions about John Jones? Your natural inclination is to go, hold on air talking head buffoon. I know more about this than you do. And then as you're listening to them talk, you're waiting for them to screw up. You're
Right.
waiting for one little half truth. We're like, well, I got you, bro. You said Jones tapped. He didn't tap. He whatever. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, Alistair felt it, and second of all, I do the same thing when Stephen A. Smith, who has had some time in boxing, gets on, suddenly talking about Floyd's history. It's like I get it. Whatever, bro. I'm still cashing checks. Okay. Again, turn the damn check. Go watch Ariel. I don't care. At the end of the day. All right.
You mentioned Ariel without telling us anything, but the big thing is people always try to get Luke Thomas like, oh, tell us what's your beef with Ariel, what's your beef with Ariel, and he's always no selling it, but without telling us anything. But do you know like what the story is? Like, is that something you're aware of, or are you kind of like everybody else in which you wish one day he would just rant about it and tell us?
I don't know. I mean, I know the history between them, and when I say I've been on both sides, like I've befriended Ariel in this business, and met him on the road and talked to him and sent him DMs to congratulate him and on certain things, and he's done the same, and I certainly respect him. I also see Luke's side of whatever their personal story is, and I also know that Luke is also like not sitting here, with a voodoo doll angry about it. He's sort of like, okay, that happened. It's done. It's whatever. You hear me make references. This is where I could get myself into trouble for the sake of comedy. I don't hate Ariel. I don't hate Brendan Schaub. I don't hate anybody, but like, I know what triggers Luke Thomas though. Do you have a friend in your life who hooked up with some chick you'd like to regret, yet you bring it up every time you run into him as a joke? It's sort of part of the comedic shtick. It just so happens that 50,000 people are watching us. Yeah, they had their thing, and whatever. I'd like to. I always at the end of the day like reconciliation. I like people to come together, and maybe someday it'll happen. I'm hoping it happens on air. I'm hoping it happens on Morning Kombat, and I'm the facilitator in the middle, getting the credit and making it happen. But if it doesn't, whatever. At the end of the day, but yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of beefs in this business. It's like any other business. It's cutthroat. Like any other business, there's things like jealousy or things like that guy shouldn't be where he is because he's not as talented as this person. And, sometimes I fall into that too and be like, man, why is that certain person getting all the jobs or whatever? But you can't linger too long in that area. You know what I mean? It's all high school beef at the end of the day. So Luke or Ariel too. They go public once in a while and tell their story, and that's their story to tell. But doesn't mean I can't rib my friend on air once in a while. And
But so to turn it around on you, because you mentioned everybody's got their beefs and stuff. Does Brian Campbell, well, maybe not telling us everything, but do you have beefs? Like, do you have guys where if you saw each other at an event, things would get a little tense?
I
Sometimes you
hope
imagine
not.
beef is drop everything and just box right there in the middle of the room. But you have guys where you kind of see him, it's like, it's that guy.
I mean, there are, but I've long. It's weird. Like I compare what we do now. It feels a lot like high school. So remember being navigating in high school. It's like everyone knows how to not get their ass kicked. So I've always been somebody who could be friends with a lot of different diverse groups of people and could talk my way out of potential beefs and just sort of try to find harmony. It can be harder in this game under the guise of entertainment when you're making jokes on air or again, I mentioned earlier about you could talk negatively about a fighter and they could see you and be like, man, I saw that shit you said. And it's like, yeah, I did say it. You know what I mean? No disrespect, I did say it, but no, it's not like people that I see that it's on, but there's things that happen in this game. There's certain people that I see that don't have the same respect for of others or that I might have once had, but I really try my best in life, seriously, like jokes aside, to not linger and carry and harbor that stuff because it goes nowhere good, and try to challenge myself when I do feel those feelings coming on. I'd be like, dude, there's enough. Everybody can eat at the end of the day. There's enough in this game for all of it. There's enough opportunities and good, we're all going home to our family at the end of the day. Like, this is all a game, right? It's our jobs, but it's our version of competition. It's our version of, whatever. But like, we're all going home to our family at the end of the day. I want everybody to be employed. I want everybody to be mentally happy and physically healthy and their kids to look up to them. So, yeah, I apologize for any times I insult people, and I'm sure there are not the bigger platform you get. I'm sure there's people that look at me and are like, man, I heard that shit he said, or he's really not. He's really a filthy casual in MMA. How the hell did he get that chair? And it's again, it's cool, dude. Nothing's forever in this game, okay? You know what I mean? Like right now, the phone's ringing. It may not ring for a few years coming up. You just got to keep being yourself and keep and ride the wave. So no, there's no deep street beefs as I know of right now, besides the time Mike Perry hung up on me and threatened to hurt me, or that time I got sent to hell, I don't know, 34 times by fighters who have hung up the phone on me or told me off, or hey, Josh Thompson kind of told me off last time I saw him too, but that's cool. That's cool.
You mentioned Brendan Schaub earlier. One of my favorite things is Luke Thomas and Brendan Schaub. I mean, they're friends, right? And you guys are an odd couple, but come on, that's a real odd couple. And I love watching the comment section freak out about that one. Looking at people like they feel like they're, screaming at Luke Thomas in the shadow play, like, "What are you doing, Luke?" Like that's such a fun one for me. Cause it's like Brendan Schaub. I saw people don't like him, but someone said, you know what? But he's not malicious. And I think like ever since somebody said that, it was like, yeah, think what you want, but that's right. It doesn't come off as malicious, but man, you want to talk about a polarizing figure, even though he's minding his own business. It's that one.
It is. In it's hard, man. It's like we're all trying our best to stay relevant and keep our brand strong. And it's like look, what I say, what it is like, to me it's pro wrestling. Like, to me, if I like make a joke or throw a fake jab at somebody, like, it's all just pro wrestling to me, man. It's all just sort of like we can all use these little fake fun dust ups to bump up each other and to get it further. But I've met Brendan. He's a funny dude. He's a good dude. I've been on the show, and I hope he's going to be in Miami covering the Floyd fight next week. I hope Luke and I can get him on camera and have a good time. And like, we all have our shtick, and I don't mean that our shtick is fake. I just mean that, like, we all have the character we play, or the I'm a technical analyst, or I'm a fake funny dude, or I'm a whatever. Like, we're all trying to cash them checks and be creatively satisfied at the end of the day. So whatever lane you're in, do you? All right, do you? I got no issue.
So something I have to ask from a selfish perspective a little bit. What's like, you've been in this game a very long time, and though people don't want to give you credit for it, but what's the biggest thing you've seen from media members that I've seen guys sort of fizzle out and get out of the industry? Like, what are some mistakes you see where you look at that and you're like, yeah, that, if he doesn't fix that, or that could be an issue. Like, what are some things like that you've noticed, throughout the years?
I see a lot where people just don't realize how talented they are, or realize, like, that like it's a grind. It's the long haul. It's, you know, it's like you know, when you look at like baseball players who linger in the minor leagues for, you know, 6, 7, 8 years and work on their skills, and, you know, and they finally make it. It's like, dude, it's a long haul in this game. And I see people who maybe get out too early, or because they're not built for that grind. And that's fine if that's the case. You know what I mean? Like some people are built to go. So I almost switched. I cannot tell you how many times I almost gave it all up when I was working at ESPN and I couldn't put food on the table. And I'm suddenly, you know, 32, 34, 35 years old. And it's like, I don't know if it's going to happen. And I'm lucky that I didn't give up, or the jobs I applied for outside the game never came through, because there was hopefully a divine plan for my life for me to get here. But, you know, I almost gave it up too. And some people do. Some people go, you know what, this isn't, it may not happen, or it's not sustainable. I mean, there are not a lot of jobs out there. We all know that in this game. So I've seen people get out too early. I've seen people not believe in themselves. I've seen people who, you know, are really good in certain categories, but don't realize that you got to round out your skills, or don't realize, you know, how to navigate the political climate, to be really honest. And there's guys who do it in a, so look, if there's ever, you know, what are the beefs in this game? A lot of times it's the way people, you know, it's the backstabbing, or the way people navigate their career, right? Like there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And sometimes I see people that don't know how to do it, or their natural way to do it is to undercut others to go ahead. So, you know, you got to be long suffering, but you got to believe in you. You got to believe at the end of the day that if this is the path that you went down, that it was for a reason, and that you are made to do this. And maybe the people that get out again realize they weren't, and go, you know, I had a fun cup of coffee there, but that was to prepare me for what's next. But if there's anything I see, it's people getting caught too much up in the political baby kissing ass, tearing down others thing, and not in the, you know, worry about you. Like it's hard, man. We all hit this wall where we think hard work is enough in this game, and it's not. Like you have to be your own number one biggest advocate. Not, you know, self-promoter to a degree, but you got to be your own biggest business. You got to knock on doors. Like you got to take a chance. You got to put your name out there. You got to be prepared to be told no. I've been told no so many times. I've been told I'm in the wrong business so many times. I just made decisions not to believe it, right? Like there's something in me that said, no, keep going. You're going to find there's something there for you, right? You know, like remember how many times Tim Tebow is told he's not a quarterback? Well, he may not be a quarterback. He's going to be a tight end now, right? That's fine. But like I've been told not a quarterback many times, but I kept freaking going. And you know, you have to fight for yourself. And even when others around you are getting opportunities that you don't think are justified or right, or maybe they have a more powerful agent than you, or maybe they have, you know, a better haircut or something that gets them over the top. Like, dude, you got to run your own race. Like you got to realize that, like, you're not competing against them. Like you're competing against, there's gold in you. There's gold in all of us, right? Can you get out of your own way long enough to get it out? If you can, phone's going to ring. You're going to get your opportunities, but you can't give up. And you also can't, just sit around and wait for somebody to recognize how good you are. Like, you know, you got to get out there. You got to mail out your own tape, right? You got to get out there and let people know that you're coming. And maybe you're not good enough now, but if somebody sees something in you, they may keep your number there. And if you can build a relationship with them, they may help you get there. They may say, you know, go do this, not this, you know, work on this, and then we'll talk to you. But you know, it's not for everybody, but it's not always about how, it's not always about who's the best looking, who's the best talker, who's the better analyst, or who's that. Sometimes it's, you know, who wants it more, or who feels like they were more meant to be here. And if you know you're meant to be here, you'll get there, you know.
I feel like that inspirational message, like that's the way we have to finish, right? In the words of Brett Okamoto, chills, as he would say. So that that was great. Listen, I know you start off every show by promoting the merch and all that stuff. You don't have to do that here because it's not showtime, but I like to let the guests finish off by, you know, plugging whatever it is, social media, shows, podcasts. So if you have anything you want to plug, now's the time.
Yeah, thank you. If you care, follow me on Twitter at B Campbell. Follow me on Instagram at I think it's Brian C. Campbell. But really, youtube.com/Morning Kombat is my project du jour, my favorite thing going. 3 times a week on YouTube, 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Luke Thomas and myself, boxing, MMA, ridiculousness, behind the scenes documentaries, interviews, and a lot of stupid shenanigans. Love the work I'm doing with NBC Sports Ring City USA as a color commentator on their boxing series. I get some nice fill-in roles on Showtime Sports across boxing, Bellator, different projects there. So a lot of great stuff going on. Excited for the future. I hope to call more fights because we all get into this game and like what it tastes like. But usually you figure out, like, what's your end game? What is the thing that gets you out of bed in the freaking morning? I want to call some fights, brother. I want to be part of the game. I want to sing on that song, Chuck, right? I want to be there. So I'm getting there.
All right, well, there we go. Well, listen, for the people that made it to the end, holy shit, you made it to the end. That doesn't happen often, so we appreciate you. Brian, of course, thank you so much for coming on. I know an hour is a long time, but I really do appreciate you. This was so great.
Hey, man, always great to catch up with you. Appreciate